The top one that comes to mind is this House Bill 1110 and the missing middle. You were quite involved in that earlier on.
Yes, I was. I can't believe that we've known each other almost 30 years. Quite remarkable. Anyway, I was. I sit on the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors, and my job under Inslee, obviously, and now a new governor, to basically poke and prod and say housing.
Right.
And so through that, we've started building up this idea of, okay, how can we address the woeful lack, quite frankly, of housing, affordability, these kinds of things, and how do we create more? When unfortunately we still suffer from actions that were taken anywhere from 1990 under growth management, or even way back to 1920s, where we actually had the first comprehensive plan put in place in the city of Seattle. So going through that, yes, did we come up with this plan ourselves? I'd like to say, yes, we did. No, we didn't. We stole it.
Yeah.
Which invariably happens. Actually, it came out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, long back in mid part of the last decade, I believe. With the view now of how do we add housing? But given when we look at what land planning is today, tends to be very centric around single family housing.
Right.
And we got an issue here in Washington State, topography.
Yeah.
Too much water, too many mountains. So how do we add to that density to bring in more housing? Because the affordability, which I know we'll talk about a bit later on, how do we solve that? Build more. It's very simple, supply and demand.
Well, and you famously said that finally zoning is catching up to the demand, and people can afford to live in less space. They can't afford to pay more than they can afford, especially with these higher for longer mortgage rates, which we'll touch on as another trend. But the math is sitting there. We're deficient about 80,000 housing units, and we'll need more than 800,000, I think, for the Puget Sound Regional Council's Vision 2050, right?
Right. That's more than 800,000. That's with all types of housing.
Okay.
Ownership housing, rental housing,
Sure.
subsidized housing, the whole gamut. But it doesn't really matter, because any way you look at that math, the math doesn't math. And so we're in a situation where we know we have a woeful shortage of housing.
Right.
Because of that, housing affordability has been impacted. We have a burgeoning demographic. And if you think about it that way, you look at the second half, the younger half of the millennials,
Right.
and then Gen Z as well. We've got a tsunami wave of demand, I would argue, for the next 15, 20 years. Are we actually keeping people from that, getting their foot on the first rung of the housing ladder?
Right. Well, and I've met a lot of investors, individual investors, that say, that makes sense to me. I'd like to put together a small fund with a few buddies and build a 4-pack or 6-pack of cottages or townhomes in infill locations in municipalities that didn't have that zoning prior. So now that's a reality that you could do this in Mercer Island or Woodinville or Mukilteo or any municipality that's a larger city.
Yes, you can. And you're right, we said earlier on, we're living in smaller spaces. In fact, household size continues to shrink. So you think about it in those terms, we need even more housing because the number of people within an individual housing unit is less. So we're still going to be playing catch up. But ultimately now you have a situation where you can look at some of these cities, some of these markets where, yes, you can find maybe some dirt. You couldn't look at it before because it was zoned single family.
Right.
And so without a doubt, I think that if you build it, yes, they will come.
And it's going to be a make-me-move opportunity for some would-be sellers that might not realize what their land is worth, and the land value could have exceeded that of the improvements on the property because a developer may see, kind of gold in that backyard, if you will. So that could be a catalyst for more transactions. So give us kind of your view of the next 5 years as we finish out this decade. I mean, what would be your bet in terms of the total amount of development, either in units or in dollar volume? Because I'm trying to figure out how much additive this is going to be to the overall ecosystem of housing.
I think that if you take 1110 individually or in isolation, because we're really not going to see much other than that in the next 5 years. Why? Well, the large parcels, the master plan communities, they're done.
And where are you going to go?
And that's exactly right. So you've got the last couple, obviously down in Black Diamond and out down by Tacoma.
And up in Clay Elum, people are going east.
Sure. So you've got that. But outside of that, I mean, no more Redmond Ridges, no Kwame Ridges, or the Weyerhaeuser projects that we saw. So it's all going to be infill. We know that. Secondly, yes, it's good that we have got this zoning, but it's still going to take some time. Ultimately, 1110 is a positive, but I've always said for as long as, since we had the bill passed, it's not going to be a panacea.
Yeah.
It's not going to solve all our problems, but it's certainly going to be additive. It will help. If you think about other asset classes, well, land use types, well, high-rise, which I'm sure we'll talk about, that's problematic just purely because of cost.
It doesn't pencil. And, the reality, the benefits of living in city is not as strong as it once was because the walk to work situation has been resolved by the post-pandemic and work from home and hybrid work weeks. Also with the light rail, Sound Transit 3 laying down well over 100 miles of track. I mean, we are now connecting communities better than we ever have, all the way up to Everett, in fact. So there's also a little bit of a gold rush of development taking place up there because of affordability.
Right.
So whether it was House Bill 1110 or just the developers' needs to build where the market is moving next, I think that is changing the landscape of where we're seeing the development and what kind of product lines that will be. But clearly, more affordable housing is in great demand. What I like about these 4-pack and 6-pack type style homes that might fit on a 6 or 10,000 square foot lot is they're already in the neighborhoods that have infrastructure, the grocery store, the church, the walkable to a light rail line now in many cases. And so, I wonder how that's going to affect NIMBYism. And you have another acronym that I thought was quite good.
We look at, certainly at Western Washington, considered to be somewhat liberal, and that's, I think, a great positive. However, as much as we would like to embrace housing for everyone, the acronym I've got, banana, build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything. And why do I say that? Because liberalism, in my opinion, ends at the driveway for a lot of people. For 97% of us, our home is the largest single valued asset we possess. So anything that the perception is, okay, if it's going to lower that value, oh no, don't build it next to me, build it somewhere else. And so you do get, without a doubt, some neighborhood pushback when people are starting to think about adding a more dense housing product into traditionally a single-family area.
But it's going to happen, and that's why it's a mandate from the state level, and cities have to conform. Even, Medina has to conform. And if they don't adopt the policies that are similar to the mandate, then, they could have the overlay of state government basically saying, no, this is what you will be able to pull permits for in the future.
And that's exactly right. And that's something which jurisdictions don't want. They look at the state almost Damocles sword, because the state's saying, if you don't, we will.
Right.
And they don't want to go down that road. So yes, will they? Absolutely. But like anything else, we will start to continue to adopt to this new product.
Well, and the missing middle is interesting because we are now able to deliver brand new homes in neighborhoods you want to live in with the infrastructure that supports the rising population for $700,000. And, these are 800, 900 square foot single family homes or DADUs and ADUs that are attached in these micro housing clusters. And the good news is it makes sense for developers. It is more affordable for first-time home buyers. I think there's a lot of parents out there that might want to liberate their couch or their basement with their child and say, let's get you on the home ownership ladder. And here's a great way, matching up the products with the demand. That doesn't mean you have to be in a high-rise any longer because those don't pencil, either for rent or for sale, in my opinion.
You're right. And they don't pencil, certainly on the for sale side, because it's not just the cost to purchase it. Then you've got HOA dues and these kinds of things on top of it. Which makes it remarkably difficult. So I think that you can still say, well, $700,000, $800,000, that is a lot of money. And yes, it is. But when we think about income ceiling and various other things, what we need to address, yes, we need housing across the entire income spectrum. But the missing middle, by definition, are those households making 80 to 120% of median income, the teachers, the nurses, the firefighters. And these are the ones that historically have been priced out. So the more we can help them, and in addition to that, just the first-time buyer in general, you think about, first-time buyers last year were the oldest they've ever been.
Right.
The median age was 38.
Right.
That's not supposed to be that way. So any moves we can see, and again, it's not just happening here, Oregon, California, 13 I think, states are adopting some kind of plans to increase the supply of housing because they understand that affordability across this nation, it can be addressed, but only in one way.
Well, our brokers are really excited about this because, first of all, it's a catalyst to put more transactions together where we're identifying new land opportunities on a list-back basis. Then they could represent, the 4 units or 6 units that might be developed on that parcel. And it's also providing an affordable solution for people that were otherwise having to drive to affordability. And, obviously there's been a lot of, headwinds associated with that from a lifestyle perspective. Talking to Tadashi Shiga, who's our vice president of our land division, and the partnership we have with him with his realty platform, which basically creates, using artificial intelligence and an incredible bounty of information from the developer clients that we represent, that we can see into these municipalities on what's the propensity for development and also help, put pro formas together so that would-be sellers understand what their land might be worth. And that is creating a whole new ecosystem within our development business and for brokers, because basically we need a lot more land brokers now to understand how to put these deals together.
And you're right. So I think this is not a short-sighted, it's not a short-term situation. And so I think House Bill 1110, it has legs and it's going to continue. And I'm talking for decades from now that will still be going on, hopefully even more so. So as with anything else, no one really wants to be the first in.
Right.
And that makes sense for you guys because of the fact if you can provide all that wonderful data and that very rich environment that you have in terms of data collection and assimilation, then that's going to help, because I think that it's classic for developers. No one wants to be the first out.
Right.
However, once you start seeing, then you will see a snowballing effect.
Well, and it makes sense from an investor's perspective because the risk profile, especially in the state of Washington, to do high-rise condominiums that could take you 6-7 years from concept to final closing, and we know a lot can change in just a matter of a couple of years. You're in and out of these micro-housing projects probably within 24 months. I would much rather put $1 million in 250 backyards than $250 million in a single tower right now.
It's very well put. And you're absolutely right. Think about it. That's 6-7 years. As you said, go from concept to closing. I think that's a bit light, in my opinion. I think it would actually take longer. But that's an entire business cycle.
Right.
And so we could go from recession to recession. And so, I think that by going down that road, the appetite, I think, for most developers just isn't there. Because if it was, guess what? We'd be seeing cranes everywhere. And we are not.
Yes.
And yet we still continue to add households. We still continue to see population growth and migration to the Northwest. Now, people need to live somewhere.
It's really important for our competitiveness as well that we have that kind of inventory, because if you can't afford to live here, you're not going to want to work here, and that could be a headwind for our economy.
Oh, very, very much so. I think there's 2 things that most businesses, entities, if they're looking into a market to expand into or to start in, 2 things they think about, one of which is there a talented workforce I can hire? Well, here in the Northwest and here in Seattle, we are wicked smart, got that one covered. The second one is, how much do I have to pay people?
Right.
Biggest component of salaries, cost of living. So at what point do they say, I've got to pay people how much and not to live in a shoebox?
Right.
Well, then again, if we really want to continue to grow, which we are as a state, and we certainly need to grow revenues, well, we have to figure this part out.
Yes.
If we are not going down an appropriate road, then companies are going to start thinking, maybe Washington or maybe Seattle's not for us.
Well, I think this is policy that's the right time at the right place, and it will make a material difference to our competitiveness and also to the brokerage community as well. So House Bill 1110, I think, is the right move, and we're going to be benefiting.
It is. I'm excited. It's going to be fascinating to watch how it plays out over the next several years.
Thank you, Matthew.
You're welcome.